What's next for IT? In today's economy, technology touches every aspect of the day-to-day operations of business. There has never been more pressure on IT to deliver for our organizations. So what can we expect over the next decade? We need to think differently about how we approach our work to continue to thrive into the future. This requires all of us to be intentional in how we look at our role going forward. Smart IT is an approach to getting the important things done by transforming the way we think, work, and lead. And now, let's disrupt the status quo, simplify the complex, and reduce risk the smart IT way. Welcome to another episode of the Smart IT Podcast. And today, it's my pleasure to welcome Crystal to the show. Hey, good afternoon, Crystal.
How's it going? Happy to be here.
Oh, great to have you. This is going to be a very, very fun show. It's actually great timing because I have this passion recently about matching up human-related real problems in the real world with people who go out there, innovate, and build solutions. So sometimes we get so caught in the great technology that we kind of lose track of what's the purpose of the technology, what's the purpose of all businesses, right, out there in the world. So I always love to kind of slow down a little bit, zoom in on something that's really bothering people, challenging people, giving them problems and angst. And then, talk to the people who are out there kind of thinking, you know what, I'm going to address that problem. I'm going to take on that challenge. And then if I can see, I can make real world impact. So I'm looking forward to this conversation, Crystal.
Me too.
Now I always like to ask people, the last time they were sitting in a coffee shop like a Starbucks and they overhear some conversation and it's something that they hear that kind of clicks in their mind like, hey, I've heard that problem before. That challenge sounds kind of familiar. Either, hey, I got something that might be able to address that, or two, you know what? I don't think there's a solution out there in the market. Maybe I should go build something for it. So I know that you experienced something firsthand yourself. So you didn't actually have to overhear it. You personally had something that happened to you that kind of set you on a path to actually build your current company of Innerhive, which we'll get into a little bit later. So we wanted to start there, Crystal, about what did you experience out there in the real world where you said there is a real human problem? And you know what? This is something that hits you in a certain way to say, I got to do something about this.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but I certainly used to think my ceiling didn't exist. And one can describe a ceiling in different ways, but you can handle financial stress, emotional stress, work stress, whatever kind of stress, right, is how I always used to cap it in my mind of, I can figure anything out. There's always a path forward. Some of my friends and family find me a little irritating because I've got this optimistic perspective of it could always be worse and there's going to be something that we can figure out that will continue the forward momentum. And I still believe that, but I think I learned a little bit of a hard lesson in that Innerhive came from somewhere very, very personal. So we had moved my grandparents were very present and they helped raise me in the early part of my life. And so when I had gotten a call from the hospital, my grandmother had had an accident and like many situations, it kind of snowballs. So opened an investigation, pulled the license, dementia diagnosis, need 24/7 care, not willing to discharge unless you have that at home or, they want to send to a facility. That was pretty shocking. We had a short period of time to figure out what to do. And my grandmother had just started to help my uncle who was navigating cancer. And so we knew it was a bit of a dyad situation. And we found ourselves in an impossible, right? We make the best decision we can with the information we know, but it was certainly imperfect. And after going through that journey, after talking with friends, with family, with colleagues, I came to understand that this is something that so many people are navigating. It's really a shared understanding. And I'm so fortunate to have a founding team that shares this. We've all sat in some caliber of a caregiving role. And that was the inspiration behind wanting to build and do something for caregivers because we had felt the pressure. We had felt the burnout. We sat in that isolation. And we knew that it wasn't a broken system because people didn't care or that we don't love or have compassion. It just lacked tools and support, things that were critical to helping us move through these situations and be effective and efficient and feel informed. So, yeah.
And we should like point this out, this term we just used, right? Caregiver. I know a lot of people out there, they may be doing it, but may not have actually heard that term before. So let's talk about who is a caregiver.
Yeah, that's fair. It's interesting you raised that. I'd say, we launched about a year and a half ago, and in my time and the learning that I've had, that's something that's really been kind of almost surprising, because you know how we love these days to put a term or a label to something, to everything, it feels like. In the very beginning, you think, well, I'm just helping. I got a call. My mom fell. She broke her hip. I had to take a little bit of time off. That snowballs. It then becomes, oh, shoot, I need to do a leave of absence. Oh, wow, I need to move her in. Oh, my goodness, we have so much to figure out. There's so much to kind of coordinate. So I very quickly went from that, help to that being a true caregiver. But there's so many interpretations. I mean, people care for their children. They care for their animals. They care for themselves. They care for each other. They care for parents. So I think it's a pretty broad term in that you're extending your energy and your care and your time and your thought, and you're showing up and you're carrying a mental load. You're helping make decisions. I really think it just takes different forms for everyone. And so whether or not people associate or they relate or they feel that they are indeed a caregiver, in some capacity, I believe each and every one of us at some point in our lives extends care or receives care.
And it's interesting because this day and age of the knowledge worker, of all these business tools, all this great technology, and you'll see people who are caring for a loved one, and you just kind of observe how they're documenting what's going on. So the most common one is maybe your brother went with your mother to the doctor. The doctor went in with your mother, had their routine, came out. She debriefed your brother, and then later in the day you call your brother and say, "Hey, what happened?" That's an interesting little flow there, right? So that's not a simple thing. What happened? So first you have to translate what the doctor told mom.
Mm-hmm.
Then mom has to translate that to your brother who's sitting outside. And then maybe your brother takes out a notepad and write down and jot down some notes. Maybe it opens up a notepad, maybe jot down some notes. And then by the time they get to you later and you converse with them, and then you got more questions that maybe he can't answer, then of course you're going to call mom and say, "How you doing, mom? What's going on?" And she's going to say something about, "The doctor told me to come back in. He says I have blah, 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 blah." I said, "What is that?" And this is a very, very long term that the doctor gave her that she can't remember how to spell it. So maybe you text your brother and say, "Hey, what was that term?" He said, "I can't remember what that was." So maybe I have to Google it. So now I got to remember what the doctor said, what was the diagnosis. And then, of course, he's going to say, "And you need to do X, Y, Z as a follow-up." And that's going to trigger an entire process after that. So let's talk about that experience about initially the patient, in this case, my mother, talking to the doctor, trying to remember what's he saying. And then what happens when she tried to hand that off to somebody else?
Everything you just said, all I heard, like, for example, in that situation is, I have dementia. Everything else just fell away. And then I'm like, what does that mean? How do things change? What is the impact? So yeah, super real situation. I mean, it's wild to think the world we live in right now with technology, to your point. I can talk to Alexa. Hopefully she doesn't respond, but I can talk to Alexa and I can order toilet paper. I can get pizza delivered to my front door. I can have an AI assistant, assisting, helping me soften my language when I write communication. But yet when my mom had a situation and had an accident and you find yourself scrambling and you're like, I have nothing to support. I've got sticky notes. I've got a million different text chains. I have contact lists that I'm scrolling through with no association of like, who is this person or where do I find this? I have no tailored resources. I have no quick and easy way to just tap a button and record and then get that summary and be able to share it. So now you've got a nice, clear reference point and concise and focused action items that didn't exist. So that is something that we absolutely listened to families about, and we had heard, there's so many different opportunities or problems to solve, but we knew we needed to start somewhere. And so one of the biggest challenges was being present. We had so many people say, I don't know. I can't remember what happened during that conversation at home, during that doctor's appointment. I don't remember the question I was supposed to ask. I tried to scribble it down. I tried to write as fast as I could, and then after I couldn't read my notes. It was messy. And it's super irritating because now I'm getting my family going, what did they say? What's next? When's the next appointment? What's the medication? Like, what do we need to do? How can we help? And then it's just compounding and it's shut down. And then you go, I don't know. I just know here's the one thing that was said. And then you miss context and then you don't feel informed to make decisions. Yeah. And, I don't know, when you think about, I saw something recently that Slack was trying to quantify and say how much time can we save? And it was like a couple hours, almost 2.5 hours back every week, just by using some of these new tools to make you a little bit more efficient and moving through things. And when you think about it, I know a lot of people are concerned, will some of these tools, specifically AI tools, will they replace us? Will they strip away the humanity? And I do think there's a conversation to be had around how can you put some boundaries. I think there's a conversation around data ethics and certainly around, where these tools can be used. But at the core of it, if people can think about these tools and see them as enhancing the human side of us, so offering us the ability to think deeply, giving us the space to be present, have meaningful connection, illuminating things that help us be more creative in our problem solving so that we're not trying to scramble and catch up and do updates, or it becomes more about like, what are people not saying? How are they feeling? What are some of the emotional threads that are happening? Are there any, ideas that are coming from this conversation? And so when I think about that, I do think we're on the cusp of something brilliant. I think there's going to be a huge shift in how we think about intelligence and how we use this information, not to react to situations, but to get more proactive, to be more preventative, to look for these signals and these patterns so that we can get in front of, these situations that escalate. Because they suck.
They do, because people will say, hey, we got workarounds today. Hey, Crystal, the simple problem is because mom is just overloaded and she's older. So we're going to send somebody young into it. So in this case, we're going to send my younger brother into the next doctor's visit. And he's sharp. He got the smartphone. He's heard all these medical terms. So then the next time they come out and you ask, and they got a problem here, he himself, who got the smartphone and can Google and know WebMD, says, I'm still confused. So not necessarily, I think people think, hey, it's a simple solution. It's the person themselves' fault. And I think I've heard you say this before. It's a systemic problem. It's a systemic issue here of trying to have humans relay everything that's going back and forth in very, very stressful times. And I know the huge amounts of money invested in the healthcare industry. And we thought, so Crystal, we're going to have electronic health records, which is going to solve everything, right? Simple solution. So I go in there and my doctor will swing around the computer and I'm looking at his screen, even when I go in for my doctor's appointment. And I notice something. Chris, I have no idea what's on the screen. It's a whole bunch of things. It's a Windows machine. He's got the mouse. He's scrolling all these different menus. And it's very confusing to me. So I'm still having trouble figuring it out. And he'll say, well, don't worry. I'm going to click a button or we're going to email you the information. And after you get the email, you can always log into your portal. Both of those situations, Crystal, still frustrating for me, who's also in tech as well. And it's a lot in there. So just talking more about this pain where it's like, we got all these more humans, we're getting younger versions, we're getting certain type of technology, but it's still, we're missing the mark here.
Oh yeah. You mean you don't want to be a medical scribe and an expert in all things aging and the emotional support and also be the transportation? I mean, we are expected. There's a lot of people that I think, people that are extending this caliber of care are in the shadows because they also have other things in their life that they're trying to navigate and juggle. And they're not always comfortable talking about this. So there is a little bit of stigma around it, especially in the, working space. But you're expected to wear 20 different hats and show up and almost act as a trained professional to be able to understand and know how to appropriately care for your loved one, because there's not always the resources or system or the ability at home. But that's even taking the problem further down the line. That's starting to get into the whole, as you go through the journey, our goal was to try to understand and grow with people. But I think where you're starting right now is, if you picture just being in a doctor's office, being able to quickly tap a button and you have something immediately grabbing and holding on to that entire conversation. It's transcribing it. It's parsing the medical, details in real time. It's pulling out what important action items are going to come from this. It's categorizing to understand like, okay, what's most important versus what's something that I can do in maybe a couple weeks. And being able to organize that in a way that makes sense to us non-medical people. It makes it so easy so that when you come out, you instantly, real time, you've got the summary and you are able to be present. You are able to extend that support for yourself, for your loved one, whomever is in the room, and fully listen and be able to engage and ask questions without concern of, did I miss anything? Can I read it? What's next? And we make it really easy. You tap a button It pulls that, it summarizes, it puts it into action items. You can go through and see your progress. You can share it with whomever you trust or whomever's in your support network. And it was really our goal to try to lighten the load. We didn't want to ask anything of people. We wanted to make it really easy in the very beginning because we know, families are taxed.
And the way we started the conversation was with just a single visit. But we know the patient's going to have follow-up visits. So then, of course, we got to track the follow-up appointments. So, you go to the receptionist desk, the nurse, they take the doctor's notes, and then maybe, depending on what it is, you get 2, 3, or 4 future appointments. Maybe the mom is writing it down. Maybe your brother's writing it down. And he said, by the way, you're going to need to go with me next time. So the person we went with, in this case, we're talking about about caregivers, they have to keep track of it. So let's talk about keeping track of next time the person that you're helping out, that you may need to get them across town, and they have to fit this into their schedule.
Yeah, I kind of love that you use the appointment piece. This is something we're certainly exploring a little bit more with, so I'm sure we can take this in many directions. But I think that a lot of times families are essentially required to operate some caliber of a complex operation, so to speak, without any integration level, without understanding like this doctor is over here, this doctor is over here, my community's here, my living's here. No one's talking to each other. There's no transparency. There's no way of being able to the urgency of how you spend your time, where to go, what's happening, what that focus is, what's next. That's absolutely what we're trying to do in terms of we want to be the second brain. We want to be the partner, the assistant, someone that can come along with you, capture the information, help you organize it. You can put all of your care events in there. So people think, a lot of times you start with a care plan and it kind of iterates or evolves. And so you've got that ability. It's dynamic. It moves, it grows, it changes with you. You can take a picture of medication. You can track that. Super important to have core things like medication diagnoses, allergens, along with contextual stuff of how does my mom communicate? What does a smile mean to her? How does she like to receive information? What makes her comfortable and safe and feel good? Both are equally important. You want to understand how to, someone's physiological and what they need, but you also want to understand someone's emotional and how to support. And so we create a space where you can track all that information in there. And so it makes it easy to be kind of the point of truth. So if you want to bring in someone, you can feel good and confident knowing you've got all that information there so they have the full context. If you are onboarding new support members, it makes it really easy to quickly show a visual and have that information at your fingertips to build empathy. Because in the beginning, it's hard. People are like, I don't understand. Why does it take so much time? Like, do you really need that many doctors? What are you actually doing with all that time? Why are you shouldn't really be that stressed out. This isn't, we all do this every day. You almost get that. And then when you start to say, well, look at what we're navigating in a short period of time and all this information that we're trying to understand. We've got 15 different specialists. Now we're rolling into your point, how to coordinate the appointments and making sure that we're letting people, who can help. Here's what we're doing. Here's what they give us after the appointment. Like that information overload is mentally taxing.
So we've got a couple of key pieces here. The first one, the concept is not just one caregiver, but it's a team, right? It's a team of teams. So if it's maybe you have 2 brothers, 2 sisters, maybe an aunt, an uncle, maybe you have a friend. So there's 4 or 5 different people who are involved who want to help. So you're talking about at the basic, maybe you have to email these people what just happened and say, by the way, can somebody else pick up and take the loved one to the hospital next time? They say, oh my God, we get there. I don't know what's going on. And this first person said, I emailed it to you. Don't worry, now I'm going to text it to you. And then somebody else hop in and said, now I'm going to put it into a note-taking app. So now we have information in emails and texts and note-taking apps, and we're spreading it around to multiple people in this immediate family and friends, which is very cumbersome. So I'm loving the fact that you identified that particular area to go attack. And the other thing is, like I say, if you're going to build a solution, you really want to make sure you identify every single pain point just to get a full scope and figure out what you're going to attack. And the other thing you mentioned was this other caregivers, all these specialists. So I don't know about you, but a lot of people are using sticky notes for all the specialists. Like you mentioned, 15 specialists. Let's talk about the immediate family and friends, and then this other team over here of specialists, and how you've seen people just struggle to try to keep track of all these different people.
Yeah, specialist is the new thing. Like, gone are the days of generalists or having one, doctor that holistically looks at your needs or your care. I recognize there's pros and cons to that, but it's certainly difficult in terms of how can you bring your community in? How can you make sure your community is informed, make sure everyone's connected, make sure they have the context to be able to provide the care that leads to good outcomes. We do have a community space, so you can have all this in there. It's at a glance. You can have multiple people. So if someone wanted to go and they wanted to download Innerhive from the App Store, Google Play, or maybe they want to use on their iPad or desktop, whatever their preference is, they can access it. You can create your entire family system in there under one user. So I can have my children, I can have my parents, and it makes it easy to go between. And then I can add, if I wanted to add my partner, or if I wanted to add, any of my siblings so that we have visibility. We've got that option so that we all have this central connected space where we can see here's all the contacts, here's all the places, here's all of the documentation. So a lot of people think about HIPAA, power of attorney, preferences, DNR. These are all things that most people are like, I don't have to think about that right now. I'm good, I'm healthy, I'm young. But accidents are accidents for a reason. Like, you don't plan to go through these situations. And so the more you can slowly chip away day after day or week after week and start to get planning and start to get preparation in place, it makes your life easier. It makes those around you easier. It doesn't negate, what may happen or what may come or the accident, but it helps you move through, and you're not having the same elevated emotional crisis or scramble or missing information that could result in, a negative care or poor outcome. And so this community, we're augmenting the community. We're trying to augment and bring together. And I will say something that has inspired me when I've looked at other countries and I think about how we do it in the United States, relative to other countries. You see countries like Japan where they've long had respect for their elders. They started, it's been, 10, 15 years, they've been ahead of the curve, and they're doing something very similar where they're creating care circles. So they're sharing and capturing this information. So it's not one person. It's always going to be a community, right? People say it takes a village to raise a child. It's no different when you're caring for your partner or parents or a child with medical complexity. Like, it's coming together. It's understanding, like, what's the information? What do I do with it? Where can people help? How can I get connected? There's an emotional support aspect in here. It's really important to be able to find tailored resources, to also be able to journal about, like, how are you feeling and what are the care events you're extending? Because that relationship of care time and care complexity really does impact, your own wellness. And so we really tried to bring the organization and the emotional support together into one platform.
Oh, I love that. And then we start to look at the scope of this problem. I mean, we have a very large aging population. We have a lot more chronic issues and health issues. Mm-hmm. So a lot more people are going to be coming into this caregiving aspect or a portion of our world. So let's talk about how big the problem is today and what are you looking like? Because this problem isn't going away, right? It's going to become even more complicated and it's going to be more pressing need to have something to help address this.
Yeah, they actually just released a report this week. The AARP had done a report and they're tracking over time, what does it look like in terms of growth? And it's millions more just since the last time they did the census. So if you think about in like the past decade and what they're projecting, there's more baby boomers and there's more people that are retiring and hitting that age where that's actually outpacing the number of new children that are entering. And so it's not slowing down. It's not, you're absolutely right. The trend is just, it's crazy, but it's finally at the place where, 20, 30 years ago, it wasn't expected that companies and communities have policies and processes to support your family expanding childcare. And then that took time. And then that became part of, that became normal, so to speak. It was expected. It was, you're doing good for your employees by recognizing and respecting. But we don't have that same, that doesn't exist for elder care. We're just now entering and we have a huge opportunity for people to get ahead, for people to move faster. We're just not moving fast enough. And this system is not prepared. Families aren't prepared. We're spending, on average, you spend 26, 27, 20 hours a week helping extend care. Think about that on top of your own job, on top of your own family care and the impact that has, and then the finances that often come into play. It's, the scope is up. We need more people to come together. We need conglomerates. We need visionaries. We need people that care and are passionate. And it doesn't need to be, it could be small slices of value to support the family. It doesn't need to be anything crazy, but when we come together and we fuse, I do think that there's a possibility that we can accelerate the speed at which we as a country move, because we're able to put pressure on the system. We're able to make people aware. We're illuminating. We're combining forces. That partnership, I think, is really, really powerful. I don't think any one of us is going to have such a significant impact that it's shattering. I think it needs to be all of us coming together.
So Crystal, so you observed these problems, these challenges, these pain points. You experienced it, you witnessed it, you saw the people around you having this problem. So who is Crystal? Like, I know you have a technology background. So you want to talk a little bit about where you came from, and obviously some people will hear this problem with no technology background and may struggle to figure out a way to help alleviate or solve this problem. So let's talk about what kind of enabled you with your tech background. Where'd you come from?
Yeah, I mean, who is Crystal is one question. Who is Crystal at work is maybe another question. Yeah. I've learned over the years to allow a healthy integration of the two. Mm-hmm. I think early on I used to create such separation that people probably didn't really get to know and see that Crystal. But I don't know. I've always been kind of addicted to learning. I love problem solving. Leveraging technology as a way to solve problems was always interesting to me. So when our team had the ability to kind of put our heads together and think, and we all had come from different areas, so we were able to bring new perspective in, it was one of those, you sit in this personal pain and then you talk with others and you realize you have a common denominator. And we spent a quarter just engaging with hundreds of families and probably crying the most in such a short period of time, just listening and absorbing their energy and what they went through, and but also illuminating the need. And so that was just a no-brainer. Yeah, you roll the dice. Yes, it's a new industry. Yes, it's wellness adjacent, medical adjacent. It has a lot of emotion. There's a lot of opinions around people going into the space and trying to do and solve for families, because it's not easy. It's certainly not easy from a business perspective to monetize. But that wasn't our vision coming in. We first and foremost were focused on how can we help family caregivers who are suffering, who are quietly going through and navigating and needing these slices of support. And then when we can get enough pressure on that system, how can we work with businesses who are supporting them? So yeah, I mean, my background, technology, I love to learn. I'll never stop learning. Yeah. As an adult, I came to appreciate that this curiosity and a lot of these qualities are maybe not cherished and celebrated as much as when you're a child. So it was trying to find the right place, right time, and being able to express it, and where can you put your energy and what can you do for others. So a lot of learning, character building moments, but I don't know, it was just natural to come together for something. And this is probably the first time in my entire career where I've had some people observe and share opinions that you're crazy. This is not good language, but they've said, this is career suicide. You should stay in your lane, go run businesses, go do what you do best, focus on making money. You've lost your mind. Is this a midlife crisis? Literal words I've had from people I know in my business network or investors I've spoken with. And that's only just further given me fire, because I'm they're not understanding. They haven't been there. They're naively thinking this will never impact their life. They're not understanding the place where I'm coming from and why so many people rally behind. And it doesn't always have to be about, money or having to run in a very, sterile environment. It can just be you have a conviction. You are working and you're partnering with other people that share that. And that's enough to kind of move you forward. Whatever you learn from it, you're going to take with you. So whether you fail or succeed by society's standards, whatever, there's something you're going to gain out of it. There's people you're going to connect with, they won't take away. There's perspective that you didn't have before. I don't know, hardest thing I've ever done in my career. No doubt about that. But no matter how many days that you ebb and flow with that kind of high and low, there's a degree of satisfaction that, you're doing something good for other people. You're being part of the change that you want, and you're not just sitting on the sidelines complaining. You're taking the risk, you're putting in the effort. You're doing all the uncomfortable and hard things with good intention, and you're being open to whatever the outcome looks like.
And that's very, very powerful for the naysayers, because if everybody listened to the naysayers, we couldn't advance as a society, right? Because everybody say, "Oh man, that's a silly idea." Like the idea of pushing a button and somebody delivering a pizza to your house, or getting into strangers' vehicles. Can you use some app? No one's going to trust that. If you just look at the number of things that we depend on today, a lot of them look crazy. They doesn't make any sense. So it's interesting for the folks who hear it and absorb what the naysayers are telling them and say, you know what? But the problem is still there. I've seen and experienced a real human problem. What are you going to do about it? And they say, oh, no, well, go do such and such. Go make some money over here and you can make donations and you can donate to somebody else and you get some big tech companies and they'll fix it. And you go out into the market and look at the big tech companies and realize they may have heard the problem potentially, or maybe not, but they haven't built any solutions to actually alleviate that. Oh, don't worry about it. The healthcare industry is going to take care of it. The doctors going to take care of it. The insurers are going to take care of it. And you go out in the world and look at what they're doing and you realize they are still not addressing the issue. So if someone tells you a very specific problem and you Google for a solution, can't find it, we have a gap here. So Crystal, like you saw that gap and said, well, somebody's going to have to do it. So maybe you were standing in line and then everybody else took a step back and then you looked around and found out, oh, I'm the only one. I'm up here. So I guess I better do something about it. And I think it's very important for people in technology to understand this because some people will be in technology for years and years, making cool new gadgets and experiences and apps. And you say, like, what is all those apps doing? So if you have a technology background, could you pause and say, let's do something kind of useful? And this little thorn in your side is causing you all this pain. This is something we need to do about it. So I'm glad you took your technology background and you understand what coding is, right? Mobile apps, smartphone, AI, all these emerging technologies. So we appreciate that you took this technology background and skills and did something with it.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's always rewarding to talk with others that understand, people that are willing to create change, people that are willing to rally collectively. And I'm really fortunate, as I said, to be with a team of people that really are passionate and care, because I think that's so, so critical when you're doing anything that's mission oriented. That is a really tough uphill battle to climb. And disclaimer, not going to be perfect. I think one of the beautiful things of being a small but mighty team and companies that are in maybe early stages or just stay grounded is you have so much access to people, to families. I mean, this is relatable to everyone. You don't even need to be in a care situation. People go to have conversations, go to appointments every single day, every week, every month. This stuff happens. And to be able to just have that and quickly hit a button, record, you get all of it and to share it and have a reference point, you know, that trend over time, that log, that audit trail, whatever you want to call it, that's rich information. That's information that will help you. That's information that may contain nuggets of gold that will help other family members. And so, yeah, I just, I don't know. It's not going to be perfect, but I'm really glad that we have families to listen to learn from, to engage with, because that's our North Star. And we're trying to figure it out. And it's always going to be, we're always going to be iterating and changing. But if we have people that want to engage, people that want to try, like that's our biggest. Come in, let's talk, let's figure it out, let's learn from each other. Let us figure out how we can make your life a little lighter.
And the other interesting thing is somebody will go out there, hear that problem, see that problem, experience that problem, and then they'll create this cool product. And then 2 years later, somebody said, what'd you do? You made a product? We never heard of it. And then you look and they're like, hold it. So you found a problem. You built a product that actually, if not completely solved it, but addressed some of the pain points, which is very useful. And it was accessible. You could just download it. And then here after 2 years, you know what? We can't pay our bills. So let's talk about this also, Crystal, background of startups in the business world. So every great idea to actually nurture out there in the real world, we got to put a business around this product or solution or services to actually, one, let the world know about it. We got to market it. 2, we got to have somebody talk about it. We got to sell it. 3, we got to support it. We got to onboard our new customers. We got to support it. And like you said, we got to iterate and make improvements. But if you don't have a viable business model, you can't actually help anybody. So let's talk about your experience in the business side of the house.
Yeah, what do you want to unpack first? Because you hit a couple of good points there. I think like A, making sure that it's valuable for people and that you're listening to them and you're solving a problem. And then B, how do you find people if you're solving the problem? How do you build a community to encourage and share the word, to give you feedback, but also say, hey, I know someone else that can use this, and create that virality to bringing them a little slice of something that could change their day. And then 3, you kind of started to go down the pillar of, okay, well, how do you make sure that the company is sustainable? So what does that look like from a financial perspective so you can continue to provide these solutions? And so I guess if we were to work backwards from that, we do offer this for families, and it is free. We have listened to families and they've said, well, we want some richer features. So maybe we want to have the ability to have unlimited people in there, or unlimited docs, or unlimited recordings, or, hooking our calendar up, or getting very specific tailored, action items from the summary of the recording. Those things would be richer features that would be part of a paid subscription. So subscription math, yeah, it's never like quite the framework to support a business, but it at least provides a little bit, because the name of the game with business is how long can you stay alive? Yeah. It's always like, how can we keep learning? Okay, but how long can you stay alive? Because it's going to take time to get it right. You're always learning, listening, changing, and you think you're going to build something in the beginning. No. Most of the time you end up building something else, because when you start to listen and you start to learn, you're like, oh, shoot, I missed the mark, or this is too complicated, or this won't work right now. It's not meeting people where they're at. And so that's kind of one piece of the model. And then, as I'd said, our vision is really to be able to offer this to everyone. So when you think of employers that are large scale, this should be a benefit that everyone has access to. So whether it's employers, whether it's payers like insurance organizations, you shouldn't have to be thinking about, well, what tools will I have to be supporting me? And do I have to bear the burden of that? And so we always want to have an equitable, approachable, free solution for families. And then we want to shift and pull in the businesses that want to be able to use some of these, want to be able to offer it to their employees, want to be able to offer it to the families that they're supporting as a differentiator, to say, we're taking care of your loved one. We're going to make sure that you know what's happening. We're going to have this transparent space for communication. You're going to see all the information there. And this is also going to be a place where you can log and track from a journal perspective. So we know how you're doing on the journey too, because that's, there's a lot of grief and guilt, and there's a lot of emotions that families feel when they're caring across lines, or maybe they're extending care in a way that they feel different, or it's all they could do. Or so that emotional piece is really important too. It means a lot for families. So.
And I think it's good for people to hear, right? Technology background, they found a problem they're passionate about. They build this and then they can get frustrated. But I think the word is these startups have an ability to attract capital, to attract talent, to find a viable business model, price it a certain way that people are willing to pay and can pay for it, and sustain that. So I think it's good for people to know it is possible. I think a lot of people are still on the sidelines because they think it's safer to be maybe in a bigger company that's building things that have a more consistent or predictable revenue stream. And they thinking, oh man, me and my buddy want to jump out there and do it, but we're scared to do a startup to see if it can work. But they realize if it does work, right, helping people and solving problems is profitable, but you just need to get from there to here. And there's this gap and a lot of work, a lot of risk, a lot of struggle. But we're out there cheering you on, because if you don't make it, then we're going to have that exact same problem out in the field, and everybody's going to have all this cool technology, and everybody's going to keep talking past each other and say, man, we still got this pain, and we really wish there was something out there. So
yeah, and a user and the buyer don't always have to be the same. I mean, it's valuable when it's not a huge gap. There's more complexity when that gap gets bigger. But yeah, it's I don't know. I'm with you.
So Crystal, I heard there's something out there to help these patients. Yeah. And the caregivers.
Tell me more.
In this community. I don't know. I'm Googling it out there. I'm trying to figure out, is there something out there? And somebody came across my screen. She may even be listening right now and say, hey, you need to go reach out to Crystal. You may know this woman. I think we just talked to her like 30 minutes ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm starting to go to this website and I'm watching these videos. I'm like, this is interesting. So of course I'm put my human-centered design lens on, put my UX my lens on, checking out the website. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Looking at the value proposition. So of course I'm talking about Innerhive. So from our audience, let's talk about, we've been talking about this problem and the scope and the challenges. So what does Innerhive bring out to those folks who are looking for some relief?
Well, I want to know from you first. I want to hear your perspective. If you're scanning through, and I'm really interested in understand, like when you read and you spent some time learning, what did you feel, or how did you relate it to yourself? Like, did you have a light bulb moment where you're like, hey man, like this is where this would be valuable, or oh wow, I can completely relate. I just went through this situation.
I went through it about 6 weeks ago. I was in with a family member in the doctor's office, and the doctor said the term once. I asked for a repeat. He said it the second time. I'm looking at my family member. I'm like, I'm not exactly sure what he said. He said, don't worry, I'm going to jot a note down on the chart. He pulled the computer screen from me, but it was very cumbersome. And I had another family member outside waiting, and they wanted to debrief. I'm like, overwhelmed, not exactly sure what the terminology was, the follow-up were. So I said, it'd be nice to have this with me. And then, of course, as I'm looking at your website, I'm like, okay, it's a mobile app like that. Looking at the pricing, very, very affordable, easy to get started. And you started to think about it. If I try to do it manually, all the things I would have to do, all the individual too, I still couldn't get to where it was. So I was liking that. It felt like somebody was in the situation I was in, even at just certain element, to say, I can capture what the doctor's talking about. I can have some notes and I can share it. So I love the actual hive diagram on the website, which is good. Now all of a sudden it's like patient in the middle, and then you see all these pictures of all these people around, and they give you that feeling it's a community. So I'm not going to be emailing people, or they wanted to ask you, hey, what happened and what did they say? And you just realize when you look around at your family, friends, people in the world that you know in your neighborhood, you realize they all are going to experience this. Literally everyone's going to be in some situation where they have to help a family member out and going to be trying to figure out the name of the medicine, which pharmacy. I got to pass this on to somebody else to see where they need to go. But it's just overwhelming, and it does become frustrating that all this technology isn't actually getting you what you need to be. So I appreciated going through the website and looking at and the simplicity of it. So I said, okay, I'm glad our friend introduced you to me. I really do want people to realize when in the technology field, and they see a problem, they feel a problem, that they know there's a viable path to go out there, take this emerging technology, take some risk, find a viable business model, and go out there and try it, right? And even if you found 20 problems, a list, and you take out 4 of them, that's progress. Mm-hmm. And you want to document that. I took 4 of them off the list, and you couldn't get that somewhere else. And then somebody said, what about these other 4? Well, okay, spread the word. Let's grow the business. Let's get more capital to get a larger team potentially, and then let's do more work, and we're going to iterate. And that's the power of developing code that uses our smartphones, just uses AI to say, you know what, I'm not worried about AI replacing my assistant. I have no assistant to take into the doctor's office with me. This is a completely unfilled role that technology and AI can help out with. So I say, Crystal, yeah. So this is something I think we just needed to spread the word and have everybody else take a look.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that our paths crossed, and I'm glad to be on the show. And I think when you talk about being able to share the story, this is the start of it, is hopefully there's someone out there that this is relatable to, or there's some little slice in here of value that they walked away and it kind of had an aha moment. But yeah, it's, I don't know. I even think back to, I don't know if you remember when you could go to like AAA and you'd get the like printout, or people would have the maps, or you know, triptychs or whatever. And it's we're not trying to like automate all of care. The humanity piece it's still there. It's so critical. I'm going to put a pin in your Hive comment and come back to that in a minute. But it's you know, when they rolled out Google Maps and GPS, it wasn't that it eliminated the need to drive, although we do have some cars that are absolutely testing their ability to drive on their own. But it did eliminate and reduce the stress of navigation. And that's what Innerhive, like when you think about it rolled into one, it's just, there's so many logistics and things to remember, and you are being a second brain for someone. And so if we can be that for you, and we can help you remember and organize and coordinate, it allows you to be focused and present, and you can advocate effectively. And so it's, you know, the technology should almost be operating in the background. It should be there to assist, but it's not replacing.
You mentioned a couple of times this pressing a button. I think people need to understand what that means is. So when you're in the doctor's office and you ask that question about, do you mind? We can talk about that later, and press a button. Tell people what that means when you press the button on that smartphone inside that doctor's office. interaction.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So if you have appointments and you're hooking up your appointments, we'll remind you and say, hey, you have a neurology appointment in 5 minutes. You get there, it pops up and says, would you like to record this conversation? So you walk in, you're like talking to your doctor. There's a lot of information we're going to cover. It's a lot to remember. Do you mind if I record this? I just want to capture some notes. You hit record. It's sitting there to the side. You go on, you stay focused, you have your conversation. When that appointment is done, you hit end. Right there, real time, it transcribes it. It tells you who's in the meeting. It gives you an overview. It puts action items into a very interactive list so you can kind of check. It gives you the full transcription. So you've got all the detail for reference. You've got the audio and the visual, and then you've got the ability to share it out. So it's right there in those moments, whether it's going into a meeting, whether it's having people to your home for people that are having care visits, whether you're just meeting with someone and they often ask, what's your story? What do you need? How are you feeling? What is the care? You can use that to record those conversations because that's your baseline. That's your reference point. So then when you think, man, we started working together 6 months ago and here's the changes we made. We put in these safety measures. We brought in this respite care. We added this different switch up of nutrition. And then you can look and you can see the progress and the trend over time. And so to have those nuggets along the way, you can use the audio for journaling. You want to talk about your day and you want to say, hey, here's how I'm feeling. And you want to track your sentiment of you and maybe your loved one, your partner, whomever, your child, and you track that every day, and then you get to see that shift. These are all little slices of when you bring awareness and when you make it really easy to take large amounts of information and feeling and put it in a way where we get to deliver it back to you and say, here's where to focus. Here's a suggestion of what to do. Hey, we noticed your sentiment for this past week. You're having a really rough time. We saw that there was a lot of effort going into meal prep. Here's a local solution that you can explore. That's the concept of that community, that rallying around, that making it easier to find organization, emotional support. At the end of the day, it's improving whomever is extending care, their wellness, which then has a domino effect, right? If they're in a good place, they're showing up, they're emotionally present, they're able to support, they're not making errors, they're not burning out. They're creating a better environment for the person that they're caring with or partnering with. And that's reducing, everyone just wants to avoid these scenarios that can be prevented. And so, yeah.
So how I'm using Innerhive to build my team here. Do I need to email everybody? What you guys got going there?
Yeah, when you go in, and I think maybe you use your judgment on what you want to share after, but I know people ground in visuals, so I'm happy to share some visuals after if anyone, wants to be able to see and explore. But certainly you can also go, and as William had said, you can download it from App Store, Google Play. You can see it on our website at innerhive.com. But basically when you go in, you can create your story. Hey, I'm Crystal. Here's what I'm navigating. I have this chronic condition. This is my inner hive, my inner circle, the people that are most trusted. You can quickly upload them from your contact list. You can put pictures, avatars, but it's at the center of that visual. So that care map that you had said. In business, a lot of people see it as mind mapping, and social services, they see it as eco mapping. But really, that picture tells 1,000 words because it sets the situation. It shows you all the people and places, and then you can kind of organize by that. And so, yeah, when you want to add people, you pull them in, you do that, and it notifies them. And then they have the option, if they just want to view it, they can view it. If they want to be part of it and be a co-owner, they can do that. We have very early on, you had said, yeah, with siblings and family, you're on text threads and you've got calls and you've got a million different things. We have a central community space. So if there are changes, updates, need for help, any asks, once you define your inner circle, you can continually post, whether it's progress from physical therapy, whether it's Mom and I are having lunch together and it's a photo, whether it's I really need help with transportation this week, or maybe it's here's the notes from the doctor's appointment. You get to create your community and then you get to share and push that information, and then they can go in, and it can be movement groups, it could be spiritual groups, it could be family, friends, doctors. You control who your community is and the level of visibility they have to that information.
And I think you guys are helping out with the tracking of the appointments as well.
We sure are. Yep. People can hook up to their calendar. We support any calendar, so it's very easy to integrate. And you can go in, put it in, and then you can be able to associate. So if you do have that appointment with a neurologist, you get that reminder, you do the recording, now you've associated the notes with that appointment. So it's just really easy and organized when you look back, or when people say, you had 3 different appointments this week. I need to know, what meds, what's the situation? And then you've got, here's what the cardiologist said, here's what the neurologist said, here's what maybe the care manager said. And you can share that off, and it's very cleanly associated. And so you also know, going forward when you need to talk to someone, because a lot of families will slice and dice. They have, some people that want to handle the transfer or logistics or the meal, or they want to handle all the scheduling and the appointments, or some feel more comfortable with the medical. Like you said, no, I'm going to bring the young ones in, or I'm bringing my sibling in. Maybe they'll understand more. And so they parse that out. And so it's really powerful because it brings together generations of families with all of the information at the center.
So who is this Innerhive for? Is it any particular type of person who would download it and start using it? I know in business, we like to talk about total addressable market, but in this case, it is quite large. So how do you view of the consumer of this particular product?
It's for anyone. So it's for me, you, it's for if I want to just track my information as an individual, and it's not maybe super complex yet. If I am a parent and I have children that I want to plan for, a lot of parents often think if something happens, if you have a babysitter, if they go to a camp, this is really important information. Some parents that are managing and have children, a child with a medical complexity, you're back in that same situation as you might have for, an aging parent. And we knew that if we can solve this for something like people with a cognitive, situation like dementia or Alzheimer's, or a parent who has a child with medical complexity, when you can solve for that complex scenario, it works for everyone else. Like those are the hardest. And so that's why we approached those first, because we wanted this to be something that anyone can use. We have partners in here. We have families that have reached out. This is like a heart-touching one because I'm an animal lover. And there's a gentleman who was using this. His daughter had suggested it. They got on. They used this to communicate. They're across state lines. He's very resistant to ever going into the hospital because he's concerned that if he does, he doesn't have anyone to care for his dogs. So he has actually put in care plans for his dogs so that if something were to happen, he's shared this with his family, his neighbor, and his close community. And so if something happens, he's got all the information for himself, but also for his dogs, because he's so concerned. I don't want to go in because what if something happens, or the care for my dogs, or what if I don't come out? Like that fear has almost paralyzed him, that allowing him to create and organize and share has given him a sense of confidence and calm, that he's like, okay, I know it's covered. I know I've done good to make sure that, if something were to happen, there's care there, not just for me, but for, what he considers his now current children, since his children are adults and out of the house. So
I love that. So when anybody asks you, hey, Crystal, the large language models, is it helpful for people?
Sure is.
I love it. And that's a nice thing we have to hear, because we just heard about AI and large language models, agentic AI. When people throw the technical terms out, or they just think about simple use cases, we got to remember it's part of emerging technology that's readily available for innovators and problem solvers to leverage to actually tackle real human problems. Is there anything, other feature of Innerhive that we haven't covered that you want to mention?
I think we hit most of them. I mean, you've got kind of, when I think about Innerhive, we are able to take and transform appointments into shared actionable summaries. So that's that recording function. We're able to give better follow through and clear action items that come out of it. We've had, caregivers, which you said earlier, when you are going through and you're engaging with something like this, they've shared, I finally don't feel like I'm doing this alone, because we've created and augmented kind of this additional community, if you will, and the second brain. And so it lightens the load very quickly, immediately. We've had, when you speak of kind of that visual, that's where you can log what's happening in living, what's happening in your finance, all your documentation, your specialists, your community. It gives you a place to put the contact information, so you know who, what, where, when. You've got the ability to, we talked a little bit about kind of wellness. So we've got a space where you can communicate with your community and really encourage transparent and collaborative engagement. We also have a space where the community has created a resource catalog. So we had a lot of feedback in the very beginning from families saying, where do I go for X? And then the next question would often be, well, do you trust them, or do you know anyone that had a good experience? And we all know resources are hard to govern. There's no, what's good today may not be tomorrow. And we didn't want to put ourselves in the middle, but we wanted to give our community a voice. So we had shared and said, you know what, if you have an organization if you have something that's educational, community, it could be a book, a podcast, a service, anything that you had a good experience with and you want to pay it forward and be able to share with other families or other Innerhive, people that are in that community, let us know. We'll get added to the resource catalog. So that resource catalog is curated and driven by our community. It's not paid, sponsored. There's nothing in there. It's a trusted arm for our community to have a voice. And then they can go in, and if they want to rate it, you can see, organizations or places or services that people have engaged with, and you can see the rating. So you can think of it as like a Yelp or a Google.
Nice.
But again, it's user voice. So we've got that resource center. And then what we didn't talk about in detail was the journaling. So we have the ability for, daily logs where people can say, here's how I'm feeling. Here's how much energy I have. Here's how much time I spent on myself. I had good sleep. I got outside. And then they can also log, today I spent time on, maybe it's meal prep, maybe appointment transit, medication management. And you can start to see trend over time on average, how many hours a week am I spending on medication management versus meal prep? What's my general sentiment? Am I happy on average or am I struggling? That's really the first step of raising awareness before we start to then introduce solutions and say, okay, here's one tip that you can do. Okay, here's one service that you can consider. Okay, you've had a bad week. We'll reach out to your inner circle and see how they can help. So if we can get more users in and we can get them journaling and we can get them giving us this rich understanding of like, where do they need the most help? We can start to close the gap and introduce solutions and services to them so they don't have to think about it. They're giving us what we need to know. And we're saying, hey, look, here's what you can do. Here's how we can help. Here's where you can go and what that looks like for you.
Awesome. Is next step for somebody who's loving what you just talked about, going to your website, anything else, any words for them to get started?
Yeah, they absolutely can go to the website. Can also follow up. We've got, I'll share a link that kind of walks you through a video of how you can download. Super easy. You download, sign up with an email, you get a code, goes to your email, put that in, and then you start the journey. So we've got kind of a setup process that steps you through. You can pick your own journey wherever you want to start. We suggest that everyone, it's very easy to record conversations. There's no shortage of appointments and discussions happening. So that's an easy first place. And then as you grow through your care journey, you have other things like the journal or the resources, or if you want to push and share updates to the community, if you want to do, some document and future planning around estate planning or advanced care, you've got all the tools there. But first place, get in, start with those conversations. It requires nothing of you. Let us do the work. Let us help you, create some actionable next steps and understand the important context coming out of it. But anyone that wants to explore this and play, we love good and bad. They are equal in value. So if you like something, let us know. If something's missing and you're like, I would really need this. This is super critical to my journey or to helping me, let us know. And if something gives you an out-of-body response and you're like, this is awful, or I'm hitting my head against the wall and this is not intuitive, or I don't like this, let us know. Like, all of that is good so that we can continue to learn, because our end goal is we want to make sure we're doing this right for families.
I love it. A solution that found the problem and will continually adapt and iterate to kind of meet the needs of real people out there in the field. I love this. I love these stories of innovation and using technology that we can actually be proud of and say, you know what, it's making a difference in our lives.
Yeah. And earlier when you mentioned the hive, I love that you called out. I've had so many people, some people get it and some people miss it. We're huge nature lovers. And so wildlife and nature kind of exploration has always been part of my DNA. And bees in particular are really intriguing, not just for the work ethic. I think a lot of people know them like busy bee, and that's, a very common phrase. But their social structure is so incredible. They're super resilient. The way they collaborate, their communication, the dance when they have pollen, like, it's just crazy how they operate. And so we were really inspired, and we wanted to bring a piece of nature in, and that kind of social structure was something that we wanted Innerhive to embody, because we're trying to bring collaboration. We're trying to bring transparency. We want to, people to be encouraged to operate as a unit and not feel alone. So that community of care is big.
Fantastic. Well, I really appreciate your time today, Crystal. Glad we met. Another great example of doing something about something that doesn't work, not the way it can be based off of all the modern advantages we have today in this world, 2025, all this emerging technology. And it's love just to give another example of let's do something with technology and make an actual difference while offloading the complexities, right? So that's a huge thing. So people out there who innovate and who love technology, make sure you're finding more ways to offload the complexity from the end user. You may just find more and more your solutions get adopted faster. So once again, Crystal, I loved your time today, and I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, no, this was great. Thank you. It's so fun to meet others where you can fuse your knowledge of technology, have fun conversations with other people, and just illuminate both their stories, but what we're kind of trying to move forward. So I love it. And I will leave you with anyone that does want to give this a try. If they want to try the richer features, we'll share this after, but there is a promo for anyone listening called Build Your Hive, all one word. And that will give you 3 months free to be able to explore and see what you think. So Build Your Hive.
Nice. We'll include more of that information in the show notes, and we'll make sure to get the word out when this is released.
Love it. This was rad. Thank you for this conversation, William.
All right. Thank you, Crystal. And with that, we're going to close out another session of the Smart IT Podcast. Until next time, take care. Thanks for joining another episode of the Smart IT Podcast, where we explore what's next for IT and disrupt the status quo, simplify the complex, and reduce risk together. If you like what you hear, please like, subscribe, and leave your comments. And for more Smart IT wisdom, check out my website at williamreed.info.